This is fire. It's a destructive element we all have an inherent fear of. But if you analyze your fears and understand them, you can overcome them. Through my years of experience with fire, I've learned to help others overcome their fear of fire as well. So Zach, tilt your head back, close the back of your throat, stick your tongue out. There, your tongue was just on fire. I overcame my fear of fire the first time I lit a set of fire poi on my friend's roof. And at the time, the only other place I had to practice fire spinning was in the parks. And my fear of fire was replaced by the fear of the cops, because we could get a ticket at any point, and I feared that a ticket could put my name on a list that I could never get a permit to legally spin fire. And throughout my years of trying to be a professional fire performer, could never afford the permit or convince a venue to pay for the permit. The way that fire performance permitting has always existed in New York City for as long as I've been doing it is the permit is $420 per event, and that's assuming it's in front of a live audience. And there is no permit for not doing it in front of a live audience. We were expected to get very high paying gigs where the venue could throw down $420 on top of paying the fire performer, which many of us make less than that. And the expectation was, I guess, that we're lighting up for the first time in front of an audience and expecting it to go well. I became one of many renegade fire spinners in New York City and started holding spin jams in my backyard because it was safer than rooftops and it was more discreet than parks. But in New York City, a private backyard still needs a $420 permit per event. So there was no conversation about recreational fire except in the context of shutting it down. And it wasn't until I got to talk to the deputy chief and the chief that when I asked them point blank, how are the professionals supposed to get better? How are they supposed to practice? How are they supposed to test out their props? I mean, there was no answer. And that finally brought about the need for the Floasis. The Floasis started because me and two other artists were looking for a space to combine music, screen printing, and sewing. And when we started looking at commercial real estate, we found this space that has a big concrete backyard with steel fence wall to wall. And the landlord advertised it as completely fireproof. And so when we moved in, we created a plan for how we were going to start spinning fire there, and it was just going to be us. And it quickly grew because fire is something that we all like to share with other people. And as the other artists moved their studios out of the space, I dedicated more and more square footage of the space for prop storage and exercise equipment and a dance floor and a wall of mirrors. We had delicately worded our Kickstarter campaign to never have the mention of fire. And I tiptoed around wording to say that all of my fire performing experience has been out of state. I traveled the country as a vendor for my clothing line and learned as much as I could about fire safety. I stay awake at night reading National Fire Protection Agency documents and educate myself on the fear of the authority and the fear of what could go wrong, and the same fears that the fire department had about what we do. The system in place wasn't working. There were hundreds of disenfranchised fire spinners who had no other option than to operate illegally. And after 4 years, I was approached by another fire performer who works with the fire department legally for the past several decades, Flambeau Fire, and he brought me into the fire department to educate them on what their certificate should look like. And we were all surprised about how well we got along, and the only downfall was that I couldn't talk about the Floasis. I had taken the case off of my phone and my computer so that they couldn't look up the Floasis, but I know that if they Google my name, it would come up. My 5-year plan was to get to a point with the fire department where I could finally bring them to the Floasis. And within 3 months of working with them and working with other venues like the House of Yes and Bushwick Bazaar, I felt comfortable enough to finally tell them what I do. And I helped the fire department create a 1-year permit for fire spinning school, something that's never happened before. And it was completely unprecedented, and my 5-year plan happened in 3 months. And now we have a Floasis. The Floasis is New York City's first legal fire spinning school. And we have regular classes in martial arts and fitness and flow arts, which is a combination of prop spinning and juggling and object manipulation, including staves and hoops and fans and balls and clubs, pretty much any object that you can spin around